What if I told you that your entire life has been a hidden code? A code that has always been right in front of you, but no one ever taught you how to decipher it. Since childhood, something inside you has always whispered that there was something greater, something you couldn't explain but could feel. Maybe, at some point, you tried to ignore that feeling, convincing yourself it was all in your head. But then, the signs kept appearing. Have you ever had déjà vu so intense that it felt like you had lived that moment before? Have you ever dreamed of something only to see it unfold days or months later, exactly as in your dream? Have you ever walked into a place and felt an unexplainable shiver, as if the energy was already familiar to you? The most unsettling part is that most people never notice these signs. They go through life on autopilot, disconnected, believing everything is just coincidence. But for you, it was always different, wasn't it? You felt it, you noticed it, you knew. And now, the time has come to finally understand why. What you are about to discover may completely change the way you see your life. It may explain why you feel different, why you have experienced things that others never have, and why your existence holds a purpose that no one ever told you about. But before we continue, I need you to stop and reflect. Have you ever had the feeling that your life was being guided by invisible forces? Have you ever sensed a strong intuition or presence, only to realize later that it made perfect sense? How many times have you ignored signs that seemed small in the moment, but later turned out to be clues to something much greater? And what if I told you that the answers to all these questions have always been right in front of you, but something or someone did not want you to discover them? Are you ready to see the truth? What I am about to tell you might sound unbelievable to some people, but deep down, you already know it's true. You have always known. You have always felt it, but you were never able to put it into words. Now, get ready, because this might be the awakening you've been waiting for. And once this revelation is made, you will never see your life the same way again. You have a choice now. Ignore this message and continue living as before, or stay with me until the end, and finally understand why nothing in your life has ever been a coincidence. Have you ever felt different from everyone around you but never quite knew why? Since childhood, something inside you has told you that something was off, that the world was not exactly as it seemed. While other children played without a care in the world, you observed everything differently. You noticed patterns no one else saw. You asked questions no one seemed interested in answering. You felt things that didn't seem to belong only to you. But instead of finding answers, you experienced the opposite. People looked at you strangely, ignored your questions, or told you it was just your imagination. And little by little, you began to hide it within yourself. How many times have you tried to fit in, tried to be like everyone else, only to feel deep down that you were forcing something that wasn't real? How many times have you convinced yourself it was all in your head, only for that feeling to return even stronger? You realized that you were more sensitive than others, that certain environments made you uncomfortable for no apparent reason. Crowded places were exhausting. Some people seemed to drain your energy just by being near you, but no one ever explained why. Have you ever felt that? Have you ever walked into a place and suddenly felt an unexplainable chill, a pressure in your chest, or an overwhelming urge to leave? As if something invisible was affecting you, and no one else could see it? Now stop for a moment and think. How many times have you felt that your intuition was warning you about something before it even happened? Maybe you sensed that someone wasn't trustworthy before having any real reason to believe it, or you felt that a place carried a strange energy without knowing exactly why. And then, sometime later, you realized you were right. Have you ever experienced that? Have you ever had the feeling that you knew something before it happened? The truth is, the chosen have always carried this restlessness within them. Since childhood, they have felt that something greater is happening behind the scenes of reality, something most people are unable to see. But instead of finding answers, the world teaches them to ignore it, to forget, to fit in. The system wants you to believe that all of this is normal, that your intuition is nothing more than a coincidence, that this feeling of being different is just an exaggeration. But what if I told you that all of this has a reason? That every shiver, every premonition, every unexplainable sensation was actually a calling? And what if the truth that no one ever told you was far greater than you ever imagined? What if everything you have felt your entire life was a piece of a puzzle that is about to be completed? In the next few minutes, you will discover exactly what this means. And once this revelation happens, you will never see your life the same way again. What if I told you that something has been watching you for years? Something that has always been there, but you never fully noticed? Maybe it was that strange sensation in the middle of the night, a sudden chill with no explanation, or that unsettling feeling that there is something beyond what the eyes can see. Subtle signs have been appearing in your life, trying to show you something, trying to warn you. But have you really paid attention? Or have you, like most people, ignored these signs, thinking they were just imagination? Have you ever felt like you were being watched, even when you were alone? Have you ever had the feeling that something was guiding you towards certain situations, as if your life was following an invisible path that you couldn't yet see? Some people call this coincidence. But what if I told you that coincidences do not exist? What if every déjà vu, every premonition, and every strange moment you've experienced is part of something much greater? Have you ever had dreams that felt like more than just dreams? Have you ever met someone and felt an instant connection, as if that person had already been part of your life before? Have you ever randomly thought of someone, only for that person to appear or message you shortly after? These small events have always been there. The problem is, most people never notice. They go through their daily routines distracted, unaware that a hidden pattern is guiding everything. But you feel it. You notice it. You have always known there was something different. And if this happens to you, the question is, why? Since childhood, you have felt that some situations were too strange to be mere coincidences. Maybe you noticed that certain events seem to repeat themselves in an unexplainable way. Maybe you realized that certain people entered your life at exactly the right moment, bringing messages, changing your destiny in improbable ways. But were you ready to understand these signs? Or have you unknowingly ignored them until now? The truth is, these signs are part of something much greater. They are like codes that only a few can interpret. Most people are too distracted to see them. From an early age, we are taught to ignore intuition, to believe that everything must have a logical explanation. But what if the truth is exactly the opposite? What if everything you have always felt was real, but they tried to convince you otherwise? Think about how many times your intuition warned you about something before it happened, as if you already knew something was wrong or about to change. And think about how many times you ignored that warning, only to later realize you should have listened to your inner voice. Were all those moments just coincidences? Or were they desperate attempts from the universe to wake you up? Many of the chosen go through life never truly understanding what is happening to them. They feel the signs, they notice the patterns, but they cannot interpret them. And without realizing it, they become more and more disconnected from this invisible connection, distracted by worldly concerns, drifting further from their true essence. But some, at certain moments in life, begin to awaken, and when that happens, everything starts to change. Now, pause for a moment and think. Have you ever felt like your life was being guided? Have you ever sensed that certain things happened exactly as they needed to, even without a logical explanation? As if an invisible force was putting you on the right path, leading you toward a purpose that is still unclear? And what if I told you that all of this is part of a much greater plan? That these signs don't just mean something, but are actually part of a hidden program that has always been guiding your life. That every choice, every encounter, every moment when you felt something greater was working behind the scenes was not a coincidence, but rather a piece of a puzzle that is about to be revealed. But there is one detail no one has ever told you, something that could completely change the way you see your life. What if I told you that these signs were hidden on purpose? In the next few minutes, you will understand what this means. But first, I need to ask you, are you truly ready to see the truth? Because after this revelation, you will never see your life the same way again. If these words resonate with you, it means this knowledge was meant to reach you. Subscribe now and turn on notifications so you can continue receiving these revelations. And if this message has made sense to you so far, leave a like so more of the chosen can awaken to this truth. Now, the moment you have been waiting for your entire life has arrived. Everything you have experienced up to this point, every strange sensation, every hidden sign, every unexplainable premonition, every moment of déjà vu, All of it is part of something much greater than you ever imagined. You always knew, didn't you? You always felt that there was something different about you, something that never quite fit into this world. But what no one ever told you is that this difference was not a mistake. On the contrary, it was a calling. Think about everything we've discussed so far. Every time you had that unexplainable feeling that something greater was happening, even if you didn't understand why. Every moment when you felt that your life was being guided, as if there was an invisible plan behind everything. Maybe you tried to ignore it. Maybe you convinced yourself it was just your imagination. But deep down, something inside you always knew it wasn't. And now, you are about to understand why. Have you ever heard of the Chosen? They are a rare group of people who were born with a higher purpose, yet for most of their lives, they lived without realizing it. Since childhood, they have carried unique characteristics, a heightened intuition, an extraordinary sensitivity, a deep connection with the unseen. They perceive what others do not perceive. They feel what others do not feel. And because of this, they spend much of their lives feeling like they do not belong to this world. If everything we've discussed so far has resonated with you, then there is something you need to accept. You are not like other people. You are one of the chosen, and that changes everything. The chosen were not born to live an ordinary life. They are not here just to follow the flow, to repeat patterns, to accept the limitations imposed by the world around them. They carry something powerful within them, something that many people go their entire lives without realizing. A calling, a mission, an awakening that must take place. But for that to happen, they must first remember who they truly are. And this is where most people fail. The truth is, the chosen face far greater challenges than ordinary people. They encounter difficulties from an early age because this world was not made for those who see beyond the obvious. Since childhood, they have felt that something is off, that something is hidden, that the answers the world offers are not enough. But instead of being encouraged to follow this intuition, they are taught to ignore it. They are convinced that they need to fit in, that they need to be like everyone else. And little by little, many begin to disconnect from who they truly are. But then, something happens. For some, it comes as a powerful experience, an event that changes everything. For others, it is a buildup of small signs that become impossible to ignore. It's as if suddenly, reality starts revealing itself differently. As if the things that once seemed confusing now begin to make sense. As if everything you have felt your entire life, everything that made you different, was actually proof that you were always right. This is the moment of awakening. The moment you realize that you were not placed here by accident. That every difficulty, every pain, every moment of loneliness was actually part of a training. A preparation so that you could arrive at this exact moment. So that you would be ready to receive this truth. And this truth is simple, yet powerful. You were chosen for something greater. This means that your life cannot be wasted on empty distractions. It means that every experience you have had up to this point was preparing you for what comes next. And it means that from this moment forward, you have a decision to make. Because now that you know the truth, there is no turning back. You can ignore this message and continue living as before. You can pretend you never saw the signs. Try to convince yourself that all of this is just a coincidence. But if you do that, something inside you will never be the same again. You can decide that you will no longer ignore what has always been inside you. You can choose to dive deeper into this path, seek answers, understand what it truly means to be one of the chosen. Because now you know, now you have seen, now you have awakened, or you can accept this calling. And most importantly, you can begin to live with purpose. The choice is yours. But remember, the signs do not appear to just anyone. If you have made it this far, it is because this message needed to reach you. And now that it has, what will you do with it? Now that you have awakened to this truth, there is something you need to understand immediately. Time is passing, and your mission has already begun. You may not realize it yet, but every day that you ignore this calling, you drift further from what you truly came here to do. And the cost of that is high. Most people live on autopilot, following a script imposed on them, repeating patterns, never questioning anything. But the chosen, they cannot afford to live that way. Because within every chosen one, there is a calling, a restlessness, a constant feeling that something greater awaits them. And that feeling is not there by accident. Since childhood, you have felt that you were different. You have gone through difficult moments, faced situations that seemed unexplainable, endured challenges that many people could never understand. But why? Why has your life always felt more intense, filled with trials? Why have you had to endure pains that no one else seemed to feel? The answer to that question may change everything. What no one has ever told you is that the chosen go through a process of refinement. Nothing that has happened to you was random. Every situation, every loss, every frustration was a piece of the puzzle. You were being prepared. Because to fulfill a great mission, you must be strong, you must be resilient, you must be ready. And now comes the most important question of all. Are you ready to accept your true purpose? Most people never ask themselves this question. They simply go through life, never truly thinking about what really matters. But the chosen feel this need. They know there is something greater. And if you feel this, it means you are already on the path. But there's one thing that may stop you. Something that causes many of the chosen to fail before they even begin. Doubt. The biggest mistake the chosen make is believing they need to wait for a grand sign, a divine revelation, a moment when everything will finally make sense. But that moment will never come, because the true calling does not come from the outside. It is already within you, and it always has been. The question you should ask yourself is not, what is my mission, but rather, what has always deeply unsettled me? What is that one thing that moves you? That thing you feel must change? That one issue that has always stirred something inside you, a desire to make a difference? This is not random. This is a clear sign of where your soul is meant to act. Think about it for a moment. Maybe your mission is not to change the entire world, but to change something around you, to inspire someone, to teach something you have learned, to protect those who need it, to transform reality, even if only a little, but in a way that is deep and real. Because your mission doesn't have to be grand in the eyes of the world. It only has to be grand for those you are meant to impact. But here is a detail almost no one understands. If you do not act, the universe will act for you. If a chosen one ignores their calling, life does not simply leave them alone. It forces change. The signs start to intensify. The challenges become harder. The opportunities begin to disappear. And this happens because you cannot run from what you were born to do. Maybe you have felt this before. Moments when everything seemed to go wrong, when nothing made sense. Maybe it was a relationship that suddenly ended, an opportunity that slipped away, a path that seemed so certain, yet collapsed right before your eyes. That was not bad luck, it was realignment. The universe was pulling you away from the wrong path and pushing you toward where you were truly meant to be. But the real question is, did you notice it? Or did you just see it as another obstacle? Here's what no one ever told you. The chosen cannot afford to ignore the signs. When a chosen one resists their calling, life becomes harder, heavier, because the universe will not let you escape the mission you accepted before you were even born. Now you have only two choices. The first is to ignore this message, to continue living as before, pretending that nothing has changed. But if you do that, something inside you will never be the same again, because now you know the truth. You have felt it, you have awakened. The second option is to accept this calling, to decide that you will no longer ignore the signs, to decide that you will pay attention, that you will open yourself to what the universe is trying to show you, that you will finally live your life in alignment with what has always been inside you. And here is the most important truth of all. The signs do not appear to just anyone. If this message has reached you, it was not by chance. Now you must make a decision, but choose quickly. Because when a chosen one awakens, the universe begins to test their courage. Are you ready to prove that you are worthy of this mission? You have always felt that there was something more around you. A silent presence, an invisible flow of energy, a connection to something others seem to ignore. Maybe it was a premonition before something happened, an unexplainable shiver upon entering a place, or even strangely vivid dreams that felt more real than reality itself. But what does all of this really mean? The truth is, the chosen possess a gift that few can understand, the ability to connect with dimensions beyond the physical world. Since childhood, many have experienced phenomena that science cannot explain. Maybe you have felt unseen eyes watching you, heard soft whispers in moments of deep silence, or sensed the energy of a place before anyone spoke a single word. This is not coincidence. This is a clear sign that you have an elevated spiritual connection. And this connection exists because the visible world is only a small part of reality. There are forces around us all the time, influencing our emotions, our thoughts, and even the course of our lives. But while most people remain blind to this, the chosen are different. They feel, they perceive, they know. But why do only a few have this heightened sensitivity? The answer lies in your mission. The chosen are spiritual beings living a human experience, and in order to fulfill their purpose, they must remain in tune with this invisible connection. That is why, in decisive moments of life, the universe speaks to you, and it communicates in many ways. Through intuition, that inner voice that warns you before something happens, that feeling that something is wrong, even when everything appears normal, that inexplicable impulse that leads you to the right path, even when logic suggests otherwise. Through dreams. Have you ever dreamed of something, only for it to happen days later? Have you ever felt like you received a message while you slept? Many times, the universe uses dreams to send signals because, in that state, your mind is free from rational blocks. If you have had recurring dreams about the same places or people, pay attention. You may be receiving messages you have yet to understand. Through synchronicities. How many times have you thought about something only to see it happen soon after? How often have you found answers in the most unexpected places? Synchronicities are not coincidences, they are codes, clues left by the universe to guide you. But here is the greatest problem. Most people ignore these signs. They believe everything is just coincidence, imagination, or illusion. And over time, their spiritual connection weakens. They become numb to the invisible forces of the universe, disconnected from the true essence of life. But the chosen, they cannot afford to ignore these signs, because when a chosen one starts paying attention, when they truly open their eyes to this invisible connection, something extraordinary happens. They begin communicating with the universe directly. Have you ever noticed that when you are on the right path, everything begins to flow more smoothly? As if something were pushing you forward, clearing obstacles, opening doors. And on the other hand, when you are on the wrong path, everything starts to go wrong. This is not random. This is response. The universe is always communicating, but few know how to listen. And here's something no one has ever told you. This connection can be strengthened. If you feel like your intuition used to be stronger, that the signs were clearer before but now seem more subtle, something may be blocking that communication. It could be fear, it could be doubt, it could be the endless distractions of the modern world. But the good news is you can restore this connection. The key is in silence, in observation, in presence, in the ability to tune out the noise of the world and listen to the language of the invisible. The ancients understood this. They used meditation, rituals, nature, lucid dreams. Today, most people have lost this connection, but the chosen must reclaim it. Because when you learn to listen to the invisible, the universe begins to speak to you in ways you never imagined possible. And what if I told you that this communication can become even stronger? That as you awaken, the signs will become clearer? Are you ready to understand what is really happening? In the next few minutes, I will show you what happens when a chosen one truly starts to listen. Because from this moment on, your perception of reality will never be the same. Now you know. Everything you have lived through, every unexplainable sensation, every moment when you felt something was different, none of it was a coincidence. You have always noticed the signs. You've always felt that there was something greater, but no one ever told you why. The truth is, you were never like the others. You always felt it, but you spent your entire life trying to fit in, trying to ignore this calling, trying to be like the people around you. But now you understand. You were never wrong. The world tried to convince you that you were too sensitive, too emotional, too imaginative. They told you to ignore your premonitions. Stop questioning, act like everyone else. But what would happen if every chosen one ignored the signs? If all those who have awakened simply pretended nothing was happening, the world would remain as it is, in chaos, in unconsciousness, in forgetfulness. But here's the secret no one has ever told you. The chosen are not here by accident. They came to transform, to open the eyes of those who are still asleep, to break the patterns that imprison humanity. And now, you must make a decision, because now you know who you are. And knowing this means there is no turning back. You might try to ignore this truth. You might close this video and pretend that nothing has changed. But something inside you will never be the same again. Because once you awaken, you can never go back to sleep. The signs will continue to appear. The universe will keep calling you. And sooner or later, you will have to accept this calling. So the question is, how much longer will you wait? How many times have you felt ready for something greater, but let fear hold you back? How many times have you felt the need to step forward but remain still, waiting for the perfect moment that never comes? This is the moment. Here. Now. There is no another day. There is no another sign. This is the sign. This is the message. And if you have made it this far, it was not by chance. The universe placed this message in your path because it knew you were ready. Ready to stop doubting yourself. Ready to stop ignoring the signs. Ready to live your truth. Now, I want to know, how many of these signs have you already noticed in your life? Tell me in the comments. This could be the confirmation you have been waiting for. And if this message resonated with you, share it with someone who needs to hear this, because this might be the exact answer they have been searching for. Subscribe to the channel, because in the next videos, I will reveal even deeper truths about the mission of the chosen. The calling has been made. Now, the choice is in your hands.